Thanks for joining us on this breaking news broadcast. A few minutes back, the editor-in-chief of Republic Media Network and the managing director, Arnab Goswami, has received a 60-page letter from the Maharashtra Assembly. This is a letter that questions him on why he asked questions of the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray. And it's clear that the Maharashtra government has been rattled completely rattled ever since the Sushant Singh Rajput investigation began. Today, as they send the notice to Republic TV's editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami, asking him why he asked questions of the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, we at Republic have a message for the Maharashtra government and also the Assembly that we will continue to do our job because the Constitution allows us the right to ask questions. And I'm going to tell you all about what has happened and what the Maharashtra Assembly notice has asked and says and threatens the editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami. In fact, this letter that has been, this notice rather, the 60-page notice that has been received by us also warns of jail time. I'm going to tell you all about that. Abhishek Kapoor is also joining us on this broadcast. Abhishek, I'm just going to read out a short statement from Arnab before he went in for the Puchta Hai Bharat show. And I'm going to then tell our viewers about why this is dangerous, what breach of privilege means, and how the Maharashtra government is planning to misuse it against India's #1 news network. And Republic TV's editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami, just before going into the show, that's Puchta Hai Bharat, he had a small statement to give out. I'm going to read out from that statement and I'll go across to Abhishek as well. He said the Maharashtra Assembly has sent me a 60-page letter asking me why I'm questioning the Chief Minister, threatening me with jail and breach of privilege. He's been threatened with jail and breach of privilege. I have decided to fight this. I will continue to question Uddhav Thackeray and elected representatives, and I will continue to question them like the Republic Media Network has been questioning and fighting them both in courts and outside. We've been asking questions. They don't like that. And that's why they've threatened to jail our editor-in-chief. And they've got, and Arnab's statement further reads that I will fight them in the court, but never give in to such undemocratic practices. The Constitution is not a gift to anyone, let alone Uddhav Thackeray, and it is the right of every citizen. I will continue to uphold that right, ask my questions, and exercise the right to report. I want to go across to Abhishek now. Abhishek, last we checked on what really constitutes breach of privilege. While the Constitution has accorded, and I want to read that, while the Constitution has accorded special privileges and powers to parliamentarians and legislators to maintain the dignity and authority of the houses, these powers and privileges are not codified. Point number one, they are not codified. Thus, there are no clear, I repeat, thus there are no clear notified rules to decide what constitutes a breach of privilege and the punishment it attracts. Any act that obstructs or impedes either house of the state legislature in performing its functions, or which obstructs or impedes any member or officer of any such house in the discharge of his duty, or has a tendency directly or indirectly to produce such results, is treated as a breach of privilege, right? So it's not codified. Now I want to understand by the sheer definition of breach of privilege.
Yes, Niranjan.
What is the breach of privilege? Was asking questions of breach of privilege, Abhishek.
Well, Niranjan, what you read exactly proves that this notice of breach of privileges against Arnab Goswami is actually ridiculous and infractuous in law. Because remember, the breach of privilege definition that you read, by its very definition, means that something that was happening on the floor of the house, and if a comment has been made about that, which in any manner compromises the dignity of the house, that comes under breach of privileges. Now, I think in sending this notice, the authorities have really misunderstood the difference between the legislature and the executive, which is so clearly defined in the Constitution of India. Apart from the fact that even the House of Commons has not used a breach of privilege provision since 1880, more than almost 140 years. And even in the Constitution of India, it was meant to be a temporary provision. And in fact, during the Constituent Assembly debates, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, India's first president, had actually clearly said that this provision would rather not be used and should be sparingly used. So I believe whosoever has drafted this breach of privilege notice against our editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami, A, does not understand the spirit of this provision of law, and B, perhaps does not even understand the difference between legislature and executive, because whatever has been said against Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has been said in his capacity as the Chief Executive of Maharashtra and not as a member of the Legislative Assembly of Maharashtra, and also that there were no proceedings of Maharashtra legislature that were being questioned.
Abhishek, it's really bizarre. It almost seems like every time the government feels threatened by a media house that asks relevant questions, it will resort to such dictatorial tendencies. And let me go across to an MLA who was in the house, a legislator who was in the house. Atul Bhatkalkar is joining us live now. As well, Aishwarya is also joining us live. I want to go across to Atul Bhatkalkar. Atul, now it is shocking the manner and the levels to which the government has gone to try and intimidate the media. And it's not the first time, Atul. There are at least 10 instances of this government trying to muzzle the media because we ask the questions. And it's shocking the levels to which they're willing to go.
Today's 60-page notice is ridiculous and absurd. And now this government earlier used the police machinery, Home Department, now even they are using the legislature procedure to muzzle the voice of press. This is nothing but Hitler Raj. I would like to explain you the procedure of this breach of privilege motion. After assembly constitutes, there are different type of committees has to take form. In this tenure of assembly, even today, there is not a single committee has been formed. There is one privilege committee. In earlier tenure, I was a member of privilege committee for last 5 years. Whenever any MLA thinks that any breach of privilege took place, then he has to move motion in the assembly. Then President of the Assembly, Speaker of the Assembly decides whether it is cognizable or not. If he thinks it has some merit in it, then he is supposed to send it to our privilege committee. Then privilege committee will deliberate on that. Then privilege committee should first send notice to concerned person. Then he has every right, along with his lawyer, to present this case. Let me get it clear then,
Atul, but Mr. Atulji, let me get it clear. Let me get that right. So you're saying the due procedure has not been followed here?
Not
go ahead. Was the due
all.
procedure followed, or is this a shortcut they've taken?
Yeah, but they have no right. Because
so this is a shortcut.
In legislature also, there are rules of businesses. We are a supreme, but we also govern by rules.
My colleague Aishwarya wants to say something to you. Aishwarya, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Bhatkalkar Sahab, the whole issue is that when the committee is not formed, the only way, according to the constitution, it can be done is that the chief minister and then the chair both sign. So the chief minister and the chair both sign, and that is the only way this can be done because committee has not been formed. So their desperation is out that even without the committee, they are doing it. They are not following the procedure. So it can be challenged. It can be challenged in the House itself. It can be challenged, sir.
Yeah, definitely. And this is about procedure. Whatever the reason they are giving for so-called breach of privilege, it is not at all a breach of privilege. Criticizing chief minister, criticizing government, it is not breach of privilege of the legislature. Breach of privilege comes into effect whenever anybody stopped me from discharging my duties as an elected MLA, then it can be a breach of privilege. That also has to be decided by that committee, not by Chief Minister or the Speaker of the House. So it is totally illegal, mala fide. They are making the mockery of legislative procedure by doing this.
No, in short, Mr. Atul Bhatkalkar, you're a legislator, member of the assembly, member of the house. You were there when this was brought in. I can tell you that as journalists, we know this much, and anybody watching this, hearing this, and whoever's been seeing what's going on with the Uddhav Thackeray government here in Maharashtra, from the time the Palghar lynchings happened and the fallout of that, and the Bandra migrants gathering and how they tried to launch a witch hunt against us, and now this, I don't think there is any doubt in anybody's mind, and we know as journalists that the only fault of ours is that we asked the questions, and you're telling me that the procedure has not been followed, and we all know it's a matter of public record. Abhishek,
Niranjan?
matter of public record, isn't it? That none of this procedure has been followed.
Niranjan, can I just come in?
Yeah, go ahead.
asking me?
Go ahead.
I'll just make a quick point. You see, as the MLA was saying,
Go ahead.
As the MLA was saying, as the honourable MLA was saying from the Maharashtra Assembly itself, that procedures have not been followed. Now we have to understand the point I was making earlier, that breach of privileges rules are not codified in most of the assemblies and even in Parliament, I believe. And the reason is that the spirit while the Constituent Assembly was debating this provision of law was that this should be sparingly used or not used at all. That the legislatures, while it's important that certain protections are given to legislators while they are doing their job, it should not become a kind of a moat which puts them on a higher pedestal than the rest of the citizenry. So I believe on 2 or 3 counts, there are problems with this breach of privilege notice, and any legal guest you have would actually be able to explain to you that we have not in any manner commented on the proceedings of the Maharashtra Assembly, but on Uddhav Thackeray as the chief executive of the state, and that's well within the right
Abhishek,
of the freedom of press.
I don't know how.
That's well within the right of the press
in law
to do that under the constitutional provisions of the country.
Abhishek, from the time of R.K. Karandia,
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's completely bizarre. I mean, Swapnil Kothari. Yeah, Swapnil, I'm sorry, Aishwarya, I just want to bring in the panelists because we have very limited time. I'm sorry, I'll just come to you. Swapnil Kothari, in law, I want to ask you in law, and you just heard what the legislator said, that procedure has not been followed. It was not taken up. It was not passed, right? Right? So, how was it shortchanged? How was it fast-tracked? How is it fast-tracked in law? Will this hold?
Right. It will not hold at all. Very simple. Arnab does not need to apologize at all because that is what they've asked from him. First of all, the procedure has not been followed. Even if he is summoned, he needs to go. He can go and speak his mind and tell whatever he wishes to. Otherwise, before that, he needs to challenge this in a court of law simply and try to say simple that Article 194 has not been followed because this relates to the State Assembly. Article 105 relates to the Parliament. This relates to the State Assembly. So that's, as Mr. Bhatkalkar pointed out, that the procedure has not been followed. If the procedure has not been followed, then this privilege motion is infructuous in the first place, or it's void ab initio as we call it in law. And because it is void ab initio, it does not have any legal standing at all. Even if it were to have any legal standing, it is not codified. So one does not know what privileges they have, first of all. And secondly, also, Arnab is not a member of the State Assembly. That he said something there. He's a private citizen. He can say whatever he wants to. Now, there are decisions in the Supreme Court which, where they say that the freedom of press under 19(1) is a little subservient to the privileges under Article 194 and 105. But that still is a debatable issue, as the right to privacy was. So one can swing either way on this issue, and I'm sure that when it goes to a court of law, the court will probably scoff at it and laugh at it and throw it aside and quash this motion. This motion will be quashed very easily, nothing to worry.
I have Rhythm also joining us live. Rhythm, Saurabh, and Vinay Singh as well. I want to go across to them, but